Alrighty, it is time to stop hitting snooze and awaken to a life worth being. The fun and inspiring podcast that dives deep into what makes life truly fulfilling. I'm your host, Sue Willoughby, a self-proclaimed badass transformational life coach for women over 40. Join me as I explore the extraordinary journeys of ordinary people who've transformed their lives from the inside out. Tune in weekly to uncover the secrets to smashing through your perceived limits and creating a life that's not just well lived, but totally worth being. Hello, and welcome to another episode of A Life Worth Being. I am so excited about my guest today. This is a really special treat. I'd like to introduce Alexa Budd. Alexa is a board-certified physician assistant with a holistic root cause approach to women's health and fertility. After suddenly losing her father to a heart attack, this caused her to reevaluate her life, her health, and how she shows up in the world. Navigating her own symptoms and sickness ultimately led her to develop Dragonfly Healing and Wellness. She's a firm believer that your body can heal itself. It just needs the right environment. Welcome, Alexa. So happy to have you here.
Yay. Thank you, Sue. I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
I'm so excited to hear more about your business and your root cause healing method, and how you came to create Dragonfly Healing and Wellness. And so tell me a little story. I mean, I know that a lot of this was, you started to reevaluate your life and everything when you suddenly lost your dad. So if you're okay, start wherever you feel comfortable starting to tell me how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, so it has been a journey for sure. And I think I'll start from the beginning where all this started from. So, really, it was from like the reevaluation. And so I was, in PA school. I was midway through PA school, and I went to University of Washington, which is a wonderful school, and it was really hard to get into. And the training was just amazing. And so I was in the middle, and my dad suddenly died from a heart attack. And this was 1 week after my sister's wedding. And so we were all there to celebrate. Nobody saw it coming. I mean, he was here today, gone tomorrow. It
Wow.
was just, it struck everybody very deeply because he was such a loving and kind person. And I think that's what took us all by surprise, is how can somebody so amazing be gone so quickly? And so this really was like a lightning bolt in my life.
Mm.
And along with that, I started to have my own health struggles at the same time. 2 weeks
How
later, I
strange that it all kind of happened all at the same time.
yeah, it was striking, and it really shifted. It shifted my whole perception,
Mm.
and so right during that time, I 2 weeks later, I had emergency surgery for an appendicitis. I was like diagnosing it in my bedroom.
Self-diagnosis, right?
Yeah, I was like on my bedroom floor. I just have all this medical training, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I have appendicitis, and so I went in and it was rushed off to emergency surgery. And then a couple weeks later, I had to go in for my second mammogram for some lumps in my breast. And, at the same time, I had not had a menstrual cycle for 8 months. And this was, and I was just shortly after that diagnosed with my second autoimmune disease.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a
So,
lot to be hit with all at once. A
yeah.
lot to process.
Yeah, and I think it was supposed to happen
Mhm.
because I was supposed to be wakened up to my true purpose. And so all of that needed to happen, because it's never just one thing, right?
Never, never.
We can get slapped down, and it's like, but pay attention, but pay attention. And so that is part of it for me. And so in this, I was really just seeking answers. I was, going with my training. I was thinking this can't be it for me. Like,
Hmm.
I I know this is not it. Like, this can't be all that life has to offer me, is this struggle that I'm in right now.
So did that, you said that's not all it is. Did it cause you to, because the training they've gone through is more Western medicine and
Mhm.
less holistic. So did it cause you to question your training at all?
It did when I started putting the pieces together.
Hmm.
Um, so part of this was on one of my rotations. I um, I was renting a room from a woman who saw a bioenergetic practitioner, and he was one who really focuses on the meridians that run through the body,
Hmm.
and the cells and the organs and the organ systems and the glands, and how they're all speaking to each other, and allowing we call it the vital life force, allowing it to flow through the body.
Interesting. So did
So
you see him or did you connect with him?
yeah, so I was introduced. She was like, basically like, I know just the person
Hmm.
that you need to know. And she took me to see him. And after working with him, after 6 days of taking his protocols, I started my period, which, uh, I mean, I had gone 8 months without having a period.
Crazy.
So that was amazing. And it completely started to change my body. I was able to eradicate one of my autoimmune disorders, which was I had celiac and lichen planus. And so one shows up on your skin.
Uh-huh.
And so I was able to reverse that, and also start to reverse the PCOS and the hormonal imbalances, and regulate my cycle again.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, it was truly life changing. And so I knew, and this is the point. This is the point where I questioned everything I had just learned.
So how did you then reconcile the two and come up with getting to the root cause? Because it sounds like the practitioner that you saw, and what was the type of did he do? Was it energy something?
Yeah, it was bioenergetic.
Bioenergetic. That's it. That's
Mhm.
it. So you've got all this training and now you're like, well, I don't know. There's more to it than that. So how
Mhm.
did you reconcile what you had personally been through, your own healing experience, and the training that you had just received from, one of the top schools,
Yeah.
top
So
program?
I got more training. So I really I stayed and studied with him, and he was my mentor for a number of months while I was still in this conventional Western medicine world, and
Hmm.
I learned. Um, how to integrate the two of them, because it's very important to understand the disease process to the
Hmm.
level that I do, having gone through this medical training. And integrating the two was like aha moments, like, oh my gosh, yes, of course. And so how I do that is I use specific herbs, so
Okay.
supplements, but
Hmm.
it's not just any supplements you're going to find at like the corner store.
Right.
These are the right supplements at the right time in the right sequence. And so it's really about getting down to the cellular level.
Okay. My mind is a little blown right now, and I'm not a
Mhm.
scientist. So I'm going to ask you, well, without getting too crazy technical, I'm assuming that, okay, can you give me an example of someone comes to you with, an issue, whatever the issue is. Do you have an area of specialty currently that you? So we'll start with that.
Yeah, so I see, of course, women's health and fertility,
Hmm.
unexplained fertility, PCOS, and menopausal, hormonal disruptions. And so, an example would be like an autoimmune disease. Okay,
Okay.
so when our cells get enough hits, I'll say, around them.
Hmm.
So we all have cells that have phospholipid bilayers. This is like, think of this as like the armor of your
Okay.
cells. It's the shield of protection.
Right. That
So
I understand. Got it.
So when this shield is disrupted by inflammation or by bacteria or viruses, it makes, or maybe not enough nutrients
Hmm.
that we're taking in from our food. Um, when it's disrupted, we call them xenobiotics.
Okay.
Xenobiotics are things like chemicals, pesticides,
Mhm.
insecticides, medications we take in, different water contaminants or environmental toxins.
That's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of
Yeah.
stuff out there these days. I mean, pretty much
Mhm.
everything we ingest, whether it's in the air or our food or everything else, has something in it.
Yes. So, right, think about how much of that we take in on our bodies, fragrances,
Hmm.
BPAs, in the plastics, in the water. All of this matters.
So, do you have so when someone comes in and they're presenting a certain way, like with a
Mhm.
autoimmune, like you said, you reversed your own
Mhm.
autoimmune disease, um, and you go through an evaluation and you try and determine, from what I'm understanding, what the root cause is.
Yes.
And
So
then
we
what?
Yes, so I look at all of these layers. Where are the toxins coming in from multiple things?
Okay.
And how are the cells functioning? When we get these things that come in, these xenobiotics, they cause inflammation and they cause these cells to be flimsy
Hmm.
because they're taking enough hits. They're like, hey, leave us alone.
Right.
So they cause, which increases inflammation and it decreases the cell's ability to kind of stand on its own, to have this armor of protection. So now these different bacteria, viruses, different things have access now to our cells and our cell receptor sites, like your T3 for your thyroid, your hormones, your DHEA, your vitamin D, all have receptors on our cells. When these are taken up or inflamed or flimsy or more susceptible to this damage,
Hmm.
that's when things like autoimmune diseases or different disease processes or symptoms get driven. It's at a cellular level. And then of course, on a larger level, that affects the whole gland, that affects the whole organ or the organ system.
Wow. That's kind of scary.
Yeah, it is. It is because how many people do you know struggling in some way? And
So many.
yeah, and even myself and the clients that I help, you know, I want the listeners to understand that it's all tied together, so the hormone imbalances tends to be the focus, but or like say for example a headache,
Hmm.
the focus is the actual thing, but how is the gut doing? How is the liver doing? Are we able to get some of these toxins out? Are you circulating the same old things in your lymphatic system? So it's
Um,
not just the autoimmune disease or the headache or the hormones. It is how the rest of the body is doing.
right. Those are just what you're seeing or what's presenting and not what started it.
Hmm.
This is going to sound like a weird analogy, but yes and no. I mean, I have done equine massage, so equine massage therapist, and I work at the level of structural integration. So I work with the connective tissue.
Hmm.
And, when you work with connective tissue, it's just this huge web. And it's
Mhm.
like a sweater, right? If you've got a sweater and you have a pull in the sweater, it's going to get bunched up and out of shape. And then, but it may be presenting in, like, on the horse, the left front shoulder or something.
Mhm.
But what might really be the point of distress, or the point of origin, is in the right rear hindquarter, right? So
Yes.
it's just, it's like, I love it. It's like being a detective, right? Where you have
Mhm.
to, like, follow the trail, I guess, right? And to find what's the point of origin. So I can see how that would be absolutely fascinating. Um, and I'm curious about what your client's reaction to, they come in for a headache, or they come in for whatever. Headache is kind of a generic thing, but they come in with
Mhm.
one symptom and find out that it's something else, but yet it is treatable if you can find out what the source is.
Yeah, I think some people are like, sold. I believe, yes, like I'm already on this path. And some people are like, what? Because we have been so programmed in a way to look externally for the fixes in, different medications and um, different things to solve our problems. And so some people are really taken back and they're like, wait a minute, this is not what I've been told.
Hmm.
And so it's really helping them understand how I go about, finding the root cause. And once we have found it, like, what do we do now? Um,
Yeah, that was going to be my next question.
yeah.
Once you find the source, what's your next course of action?
Yeah. So I also, one analogy that I think helps is
Mhm.
when I think about the organ systems, I think about it like a vacuum cleaner. And
Okay.
so, when something is congested because of various examples, like we already talked about, it's kind of like that vacuum when your vacuum's full, but like you don't want to empty it because it's like still working and you're like rolling over the same piece of hair or like the same piece of food. That is your organs. They're running, they're functioning, but they're like a little bit congested where whatever they're trying to pick up or function or perform.
Or filter or whatever, yeah.
Yes. And so I think that like helps it like, it makes it make sense to people.
Yeah. Empty the bag.
Yeah, right. That's what we do. So that's how, right. And that is my approach. And so we, at your body's pace, we start to empty the bag or we start to clear the different pathways within your body or system, wherever I find that is struggling, like if it's your liver, which is the root cause to a lot of autoimmune diseases in
Mhm.
clients that I see. And
Mm.
so, we start to clear those pathways and free it up so that now liver is happy and liver can function, optimally.
It's like having clearing the bag, taking the sock out of the hose, whatever is stopping things up. I love that. I love that analogy. I thought that
Exactly.
was really good too, because, like, a lot of people can relate to that vacuum cleaner. They're just too lazy to empty that bag and just keep. If I run over this piece of hair enough times, I'll suck it up eventually.
Oh yeah. Oh right. Yes. Eventually. Right. And then it'll just get more full as you're sitting there
Right.
trying to. Um, but yeah, that's the secret. And so really, it's about because I think there are a lot of products out there, and I think you have to be careful. If I could give the best piece of advice for people would be to start checking the products that you're using.
Mhm.
Start
And when
checking.
you say products, you mean like everyday products, like things that you may have in your home, like even if it's like detergents, or soaps, or whatever it is that we might have in our homes. Like, is that the kind of products that you're talking about? Like, see what
Yeah,
happens with that. Eliminate those. Use more holistic products or something, and sort of see what happens.
Yeah, like these are easy things. Like if you are struggling right now with any of those disease processes, that would be essential, I think, to, yeah, start looking at your products. What has a lot of synthetic ingredients in it? Because those are part of this process of this congestion that happens. So looking at that, also looking at like foods,
I
packaged,
was going to
like,
say that, yeah.
yeah, like controlling what we put in, because I can get it fixed up nice, and then, but you have to control like what you're contributing.
Right.
And so food is a big one. Whole foods, like literally like meat, vegetables, fruit.
Not the grocery store Whole Foods,
Right,
right?
not
Yeah.
endorsing that, but just like yeah, like whole foods. And uh, watching the amount, if it has a barcode on it,
Mhm.
right? Unfortunately, it's probably processed, ultra processed. Um, so checking for like seed oils too. So check
Mm.
for those things like canola, safflower, sunflower, um, Crisco. Those types of oils are known to be inflammatory.
And sugar. Sugar is in everything, right? I know that when you talked about Whole Foods, it came to mind that the like when you do the Whole 30 sort of the Whole 30 detox thing where you
Hmm.
just get rid of the sugar and all the and white flours and things like that, and you're eating more whole foods, foods that aren't processed, foods that aren't packaged. And I think, over time, I mean, all this stuff has evolved. I mean, I was born a long time ago, and I grew up in an era where we didn't have all those processed foods. And then, things started to change and lives got busier, and, processed foods were the thing. I remember when the, astronaut food came out, as way before your time. And it was, this freeze dried, over
Freeze dried
processed
food,
food
yeah.
that over, not the freeze dried food, it might be whole, but still, I mean, it was over processed. So the astronauts could take it into space. But
Mhm.
we're so convenient and fast, quick, easy, quick gratification. We don't want to take time to cook a good meal. And, if you're by yourself, you're even less apt to eat, in a manner that is, you want something fast. You're like, I'm not going to make a whole, nice dinner of fresh food and stuff like that. And I think people just gravitate towards the quick and easy stuff. So,
Yeah,
yes,
and I
not
don't
good for
blame
you.
them, because sometimes the demand on life is like, whew, um, you know, but I think that's like a really an easier swap to start paying attention to.
Hmm.
Other things to add in to your life would be to use real butter and to use pink Himalayan sea salt. And
Hmm.
so that is something good to integrate because that has 82 minerals in every granule. So putting that on your bread and putting that in your water to replace some electrolytes and minerals, that's going to be the easy switches like that.
Pink Himalayan sea salt. And I noticed I do have some in my cupboard, by the way. What is it that I think it said something about it's not iodized or
Right,
something?
right.
So
So,
is that a good thing?
well, we
Or
need iodine for our thyroid. So, if you,
we're
that's
getting
what,
into the weeds here, but I'm fascinated. So
right. Well, that's good because you want to integrate. That's why I say integrate it because
Mhm.
um, table salt is heated at such a high degree that most of the nutrients is stripped out and it's just
Mm,
straight sodium. And so the iodine is then put back in. And
no.
so that is, a source of the iodine we get for our thyroid function that is not in pink Himalayan sea salt. So that's why you got to integrate both. And
Right.
also eating things like seaweed chips
I
are going
love
to
sea.
be kelp. Like it's so good for your thyroid. And so those are different ways you can integrate different minerals with just your food. Um, But one thing I wanted to touch on
Yes.
was something that you brought up, and it was that this instant gratification. Uh, just to loop back to that real quick,
Mm-hmm.
because when you start healing internally at a cellular level, it's like an onion. You peel back a layer, and then, you heal this part, and then you uncover more.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of people, or some people that come to me, they want this done like right away, right? They want to have a baby yesterday. And I'm like,
Right.
I am with you, sister. But we can only move as fast as your body needs to or is ready. And so healing, I think you know, uh, it takes time. And so to not put pressure, on uncovering too many layers at once.
Right. Well, if you do uncover too many layers at once, does it then leave those cells even more vulnerable where it's almost like a shock to their system? Or does it just take them, like, do they have to then kind of regenerate or re-heal themselves? You know what I mean? Am I
Well,
making that make sense?
that's a good question. What I have found is that your body really only lets you go as fast as it wants.
Okay.
Um, and that when we do work at a cellular level, it could release some feelings or traumas that have
Mhm.
been trapped within those cells, within those organs for a very long time. So it is truly like opening up all pathways.
Okay. That's interesting that you mentioned that
Mhm.
because I was just on a conversation with a somatic coach and a somatic healer, and we were talking about how, and even in my coaching work with horses, we bring the body into it, and all of the things that, like you said, it could be trauma that is the root cause of something
Mhm.
that in your body that eventually your body is going to just shut down or
Mhm.
rebel, or it's going to manifest into something else that is a physical, uh, an illness or an immune disease or whatever it is. Um, but yeah, yes, the body is an amazing and mystical vessel,
Yeah.
and we take it for granted.
Oh, totally. And I did for a long time. And yeah, and that's why it's like you can heal. Like you just were talking about, like the energy in the cells, different energies tied to different disease processes. It's just harder when you're in an environment that is not conducive to healing. And that's internal too.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, completely.
I want to kind of circle back to where we started talking about your dad, and then your own health journey, and then we went to where you now have your own uh, healing and wellness practice. And I wanted to talk about healing from grief as well and
Mm,
trauma. Was that part of your healing process? I'm sure it was because, like you said, it happened so suddenly. You went from your dad being here and your sister's wedding, and then
mhm.
gone. And then you had your own healing, your own wellness issues, and so forth. Was grief a part of your healing or your healing process and what your body was going through?
Oh, completely, completely. Um, it's kind of like I like to think my sisters and I like to think of my dad as like one of the ultimate sacrifices. Like he
Mm.
died and doors opened up for it's almost like he died and pushed us all through different doors
Wow.
because each one of our lives has truly like elevated since he's been gone. And but that didn't happen right away. Um,
Yeah, I'm
you
sure it
know
did.
it hindsight is 2020, right? And so
Yeah.
now we can put that together. But yeah, grief rocks you.
Yeah.
And I would say my head was in the clouds for probably 6 months after
Hmm.
he died. It was it was just kind of going on that intuition and faith, just moving day to day. in whatever way I felt. And that could have been just going for a walk one day. I think a lot of people think, um, when somebody dies suddenly and you're trying to keep everything together, and
Hmm.
there's a moment or a time space in there that there that might be your thought, but not, you do not have to keep anything together. It will fall together on its own, but you almost are like in survival.
Yes.
And so there is like a time period where you just move in the ways that you think you need to. And
Hmm.
I think that was a very integral part of my story, because I don't think I would have made the moves I did if I wasn't in that cloud and more
Yeah.
vulnerable and susceptible to being guided.
I love that. I love everything about what you just said about that. Now you've come to that realization that your father was that ultimate sacrifice, and
Mhm.
things might be different. It would maybe be different if he were still here, or if that had not happened. And I love that you followed your intuition, or that you gave
Mhm.
yourself that room and that space to open up, and rather than just being shut down by the grief, um, be as present as you could, and just allow yourself to flow in the direction that felt good to you in that moment. Like you said, whether it was going for a walk. I think that's amazing. That is amazing. I know it wasn't, you made it sound beautiful and easy, and I know it wasn't, but but that's incredible. And if you could only teach that to people, I think that would be
Mhm.
incredible too.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Because life happens no matter what. And
Yes.
it's always been, for me, is what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
You,
What are you
you,
going to do about it? Yeah.
you've got choices. Like, are
Hmm.
you going to be, I don't want to say like victim, but are you going to be a subject of what has happened? Or
Hmm.
are you going to use it to propel you forward? Um, and use it as a learning moment and show up. I think of myself as like, I'm walking this path because it was hard, but I
Hmm.
am walking it because people are depending on me to show up as me.
Yeah. That's amazing. You're a very insightful human being. I love that.
Thank you.
And when I met you a couple of weeks ago at that event, it I was like, you just know, right? When somebody's energy just kind of like speaks to you, and it was like, okay, yes, I need to get to know you, and I really wanted to have this conversation with you because I knew it would be so important. Um, as we're wrapping up here, I just want to ask you a quick question about how you came for the name of your business, Dragonfly. Where did that come from?
Yeah, this is a perfect question, actually, because I wanted to say this was right in my mind as you were speaking. And one of the things I would encourage people, like, even if you are, struggling with your purpose, or like in that grief, since we touched on it, a big part about me is the signs that I was given from my dad, from, the guiding signs. And I'm talking about like, um, things that you come across your path and it's them. You feel it, you know it, you can assign them signs, like you can say, grandma, I want you to show me a red hat with a purple bow, and I will know that's you. And for me, that was my dad. His sign was a dragonfly. And every day for 3 months after he died, every single day, no matter where I was, and I was in a lot of places, right? I was in a hospital. I was driving
Right,
home.
right. Yeah.
I was in the park. I was doing all of these things that in my grief, and every single day for 3 months, I saw a dragonfly, a blue dragonfly. And I was like, okay, Dad, I see you. And he is forever my dragonfly.
Oh, that is so sweet. And wow, okay, that got to me for sure. for sure. That's amazing. I also want to touch on the fact that you were aware of that happening. You
Mm-hmm.
were aware of that sign. I think that we get signs all the time that are right in front of us, whether it's a dragonfly or it's a purple hat with a red bow,
Mm-hmm.
and we just were like, no, get that dragonfly out of my face, right? You just you
Mm-hmm.
push them aside. I think we don't allow ourselves to realize that was a sign. That was, that your dad was there. He was looking after you. You're on the right path. I'm here. I'm here to support you. I'm
Yeah.
here. That's
Yeah.
great.
It was because I slowed down. It
Mhm.
was because I was not so distracted. I was just in the grief bubble. And I wasn't distracted by social media or TV or politics. I was just focusing on how much I was like hurting and also finding the joy, it, the little bits of joy in every single day. And I think when you can bring yourself to the present moment like that, they flood in. Like you said, you can't miss them.
Right. You can't. You can't. But
Mhm.
slowing down is hard for people.
Yeah.
Um, you know, not worrying about those silly little things. I was at a silent retreat one time, and our assignment for this thing was a walking meditation, and it was a beautiful sunny day, and we were walking barefoot through the grass, and the our instructor, or the person leading the meditation, just said, keep walking, and when you have a thought that comes in and interrupts this meditation, stop. But otherwise, you're going to walk, I don't know, 10 or 20 steps out and then go in a different direction or whatever. And, I was trying not to be nosy and see what everybody else was doing. But, I couldn't help but notice that there were people that were taking a step and then they'd stop, right? So they were being interrupted by their thoughts and being taken away somewhere else and not present and in the moment. And I took a deep breath and I felt my toes in the grass and I just took a deep breath and I said, and I realized that I get to be here. I get to have my feet on the ground in this grass on this beautiful sunny day. And I don't have anything else to do. I have nowhere else to be. And when I did that, everything just fell away. Like you said, it just slowing down, taking that moment. Where am I? What am I taking in? And, inviting all your senses to be present. I was like, wow, I just didn't want this to end. So,
I love that. Actually, I love that. I love that idea of just like going for a walk, reconnecting with earth, and
mhm,
but then stopping when you do have a thought come in, because I think that makes it real when we can physically like stop and say, "Oh my gosh, how many thoughts are interrupting me on a daily, basis?"
right.
I love that. I'm going to use it.
Good. Please do. Please do.
Yeah.
Oh, is there anything else that you would like to add or that you would like to leave my listeners with today?
I think that if you continue to be curious and you know something is not right, or the answers you have been given don't quite make sense, I would encourage them to keep seeking. Keep going for those answers because they're there. You just have to find them.
Yes. Yes. I love it. Be curious. Keep
Mhm.
seeking. Don't take no for an answer or don't take yes for an answer. Don't,
Mhm.
don't accept the status quo. I love that.
Mhm.
Alexa, how can people get in touch with you if they're curious about if they're curious about you and
Mhm.
about what you're doing and want to engage with you? How can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, I would love that. They can go to my website at www.dragonflyhealingandwellness.com. You can always reach out to me on social media. My Instagram is at Bud Alexa, so my last name, then my first name. And yeah, just feel free to send me a message, and a lot of those messages are people at rock bottom, honestly, and they're
Yeah.
like, can you help me? And I'm like, yes, we need a full appointment to talk about it, but yes, you are in the right place. So, yeah, love to hear from people.
That's great. And you are in the Seattle area, just for folks that are listening. So, do you
Yeah.
do any, can you, and this is a weird question. It doesn't sound like you can, but any kind of remote appointments, or it's in person?
Yeah, no, all remote. Everything is
Oh,
virtual right
awesome.
now. Yeah,
Oh, cool.
everything's virtual right now because,
Love that.
the way of the world, people love to check in like during a lunch break.
Sure.
And so, yeah, and so I have a process where we schedule a consultation. I'll look at your labs, any testing you've had done. I want that beforehand. And then we run biomarkers, which are really cool. They evaluate 180 different areas in your body. It's something I use in conjunction with like your symptoms or what you're coming to me for. So yeah, we can do everything virtually.
Cool. I love
Yeah,
that. Even better. Even
I
better.
know. I
And
know.
I think I think that you mentioned that you were offering 50% off your first consultation for anyone who's interested.
Yes. If you hear or come to me from this podcast, then just mention it or use the code podcast.
Oh,
I'll
perfect.
keep that specific code open for people. And so, yeah, code podcast when you check out.
Awesome. I will
Mhm.
put that in the show notes. Alexa, thank you so much for your time. I'm feeling better already, and I hope that you are too. Thank you so much for joining me. And this has been a beautiful conversation. I really appreciate you. Have a great day.
Yay. Thank you, Sue.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of A Life Worth Being. I hope you found it fun and inspiring. And to avoid a bad case of FOMO, please be sure to click that subscribe button. If you love what you heard today, please share it with a friend and then hop on over to your favorite podcast platform and return the love with a wonderful review and 5-star rating. It would truly mean the world to me. Be sure to follow me on Instagram and on my website. Links below in the show notes. I appreciate you, and I will see you next week for more fresh insights on awakening a life worth being.